On behalf of my colleagues at the GNCC, welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. My name is Amy Lloyd, and I will be your moderator today. If you wish to enable live transcript today, just refer to the top or bottom of your Zoom screen to enable that option now. Our theme for the next hour is going to focus on cybersecurity, and specifically cybersecurity trends to know in 2023. We all know that cybersecurity playing field is always changing. What we often need guidance on is how to keep up with the new technology and software while also keeping ahead of organizational threats or hackers. An increasingly important component of our businesses are success, security, and longevity. It goes without saying how critical this topic is for us all. We are pleased to be joined today by Joseph Apps, President of Joe Apps Technology, who will share with us the cybersecurity outlook in 2023, password management information, and tips to help protect you, your business, and your customers. Joseph studied at Robertson High School and then continued at Mohawk College for computer systems technology and software development. After graduation, Joseph started his very own business with a friend refurbishing electronic devices in downtown Hamilton in a store called HD Electronics. Quickly, Joseph saw a need for rising business support with customers constantly bringing in business-grade PCs to be repaired. This is what started the idea of Joe Apps Technology Support. 5 years later and a whole team behind him, Joseph is dedicated to helping all devices connect to an online world. Joe has been part of many chamber communities, such as, of course, the GNCC, Hamilton, Burlington, and Oakville Chamber of Commerce. Joe is very involved in the community and supports many events such as the Food for Kids Halton Bottle Drive and the Halton's Women's Plates Yearly Gala. Joe, although, is much more than his business. In his spare time, he loves to snowboard and play video games, and his family and friends are very important to him, and he cares greatly about the community around him, as we can tell by all of that. Joseph, thank you so much for joining us. Before we dive into this topic and I pass it over to Joseph, I want to give a loud shout out to our partner for this year's Lunch and Learn sessions and a longtime partner of the GNCC, and that is YMCA of Niagara Employment and Immigrant Services. They have been a leading partner of these sessions for many years now, and we greatly appreciate their support in ensuring that your businesses can learn and grow with us. YMCA of Niagara Employment Services believes that when everyone has access to meaningful job opportunities, the whole community wins, and that with a strong local economy is essential for building a healthy community. With a plethora of important services, Deanna, Jillian, and their entire team are always here to help. We are pleased to be joined today by Jillian Pagnotta, who is deeply passionate about the work and is here to support you. Jillian, I'll pass it over to you for now.
Thank you. Thank you, GNCC and Amy, for the warm welcome. The YMCA of Niagara Employment and Immigrant Services appreciates the work that the GNCC does for the region of Niagara. The YMCA has been assisting job seekers and employers in the Niagara region for nearly 40 years. We have many services for job seekers and many supportive services for employers. The Canada-Ontario Job Grant offers financial support to employers to train their staff. The Employment Ontario programs offer wage subsidies, job placements to assist employers onboard new employees. We also register apprenticeships, conduct job fairs, arrange information sessions and facility tours, and are always happy to meet with employers in Niagara to customize a plan to assist you with your hiring needs. If anyone is interested in connecting, please feel free to contact me directly. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I look forward to the presentation.
Jillian, thank you so much, and thank you for everything that your team does for folks across Niagara. Okay, everyone, as many of you know, today we aim for a very interactive session with a 30 to 40-minute presentation, followed by our Q&A session. Many of you have already provided us with your questions, and please know that we are committed to getting to both your pre-submitted questions and that we are committed. Also feel free to submit your questions live through the event, through the chat function at the bottom of your Zoom panel. As always, this will be recorded and will be made available to you directly and on our website for viewing later. And with that, I'm pleased to pass it over and introduce our dear friend, Joseph.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. Thank you to the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce for having me. Thank you for the YMCA for putting this on so that we can come and share this important information. I know that it's not the most fun information in the world, that's for sure, but it's information that we all need, and we all need more than ever as business owners. So I'm just going to get Robert here to share his screen for me so we can get into the presentation. Excellent. So we're Jobs Technology Support. We do managed IT services and solutions for businesses, and we help organizations thrive at the intersection of business and technology. So what does cybersecurity mean? And it looks like a bunch of different stuff, right? It's in databases and denial of service. It happens at corporations, small businesses, Stuxnet, social engineering, governments, modern warfare, they call it nowadays. It's in the networks. Everywhere we hear it, financial institutions, backdoors, hackers, spoofing, all these terms have become commonplace nowadays. So what does that mean for you, and what are the most important ones we're seeing in the industry? Well, first off, phishing scams. Phishing scams are the biggest things out there that are causing compromise to small, medium businesses. Phishing attacks account for more than 80% of reported security incidents. Phishing scams. So what are they? Because this is a fancy term, right? No, we're not going phishing, unfortunately, but they are going phishing for your data and credentials. So phishing is a type of online scam where criminals send an email that appears to be from a legitimate company and ask you to provide sensitive information. This is usually done by including a link that will appear to take you to the company's website to fill in information that you'd usually give them. But the website, it's a clever fake, and the information you provide goes straight to the crooks behind the scam. So what does a phishing scam look like? This is a basic kind of example of a phishing scam. Now, obviously, we've made this one very easy, and in the last few years, they've gotten very, very complex, and they're really starting to sit in the mail servers and learn about client interaction, how to talk and how to work inside of that organization, as opposed to just kind of sending out this generic net email. But going through it, first, we'll see that there's a fake email address on the top there, right? It comes from @security.o@microsoft.com. It's got Office-365. It just doesn't have the most kind of secure looking email address. Now, you also see the PDF file there that we know contains a virus. That's going to be how they deploy their malware, ransomware, whatever that might be, into the computer to start their attack. It's also very generic. It's dear customer, right? They're not talking to you. If you're a customer of that company, usually they'll at least address you by name, you would hope, right? So next is in urgency. So invoice due now. It's playing on something that needs to be due or done this second. That's a big key factor too, because they're going to play on emotion and urgency, right? Those are the two big things that get us as human beings to react and really click in and go to that next step. It's also got poor grammar, as you can see in there. That's very common with these kind of emails, although unfortunately now that Grammarly exists, they're getting better with that stuff as well. And also, as you hover over the link, never click it, you'll see that it results to an IP address with an invoice. So it's not to a Microsoft site or something that you would expect to come with a link from Microsoft. So all of these factors together are going to show you that it's a phishing link, phishing email. Now, the problem with this is hackers are getting very good. So they're not always using these bad practices anymore, I would call these, right? They're getting smarter, they're addressing them, they're getting into people's email addresses, and so it's sending it that way. So what does an attack look like? So the attacker sends an email to the victim. The attacker then gets the victim to click on an email. This goes to a phishing website. So look like Dropbox, Microsoft, maybe your Netflix, UPS, FedEx, if you were expecting delivery. The phishing website looks great. You sign in, the attacker then prompts for a finger. So this is if we have multi-factor authentication on. So if they get to the phishing website with your password, it's going to stop, it's going to get them through the website. Now, if you have that extra layer of security, and this is how we get by and attack and stop it to the best of our ability, is using multi-factor authentication. The attacker is prompted for a fingerprint or security question. The attacker is then denied access or a code that goes to your phone. This stops that attacker in his heels and he can't get forward. So we'll touch more on that later. So how do you avoid phishing scams? So be wary of anything that tries to play on your emotions and urges immediate actions. Get it done right away. Those are the things that we need to stop, take a step back, either call the company we're working with, send a message to them directly, or talk to them in some kind of alternative way that allows us to say that this is a verified source. Question where the emails are coming from. Remain vigilant, even if the communication appears to come from a reliable source. Hover over the links before clicking them to see where they will take you. For example, in the slide, you'll see the link is an IP address and not an actual website in the previous one. The easiest thing to do is pick up the phone and communicate with other parties directly. I know that slows down the process and makes things more difficult, especially in this digital age, but it's much more safer to make sure and verify than go and lose that kind of money, especially if you have a second thought. Most businesses are going to thank you anyway. A lot of people understand cybersecurity now and how these phishing scams can result into the emails. So ransomware is another huge topic that we're seeing in businesses. We're seeing lots of businesses now that have been phished. Ransomware has been deployed. They want Bitcoin. They want whatever that might be, some kind of cryptocurrency so that they can go hide, take the money and be successful. The real problem with ransomware is insurance companies used to pay it out under the cybersecurity insurance policies. They would pay these out, making the ransomware a very successful business. Unfortunately, what that's caused is us small businesses, medium businesses, and enterprise businesses to have to get more serious on cybersecurity and really protect ourselves with a dense layer. So ransomware is a type of malware that prevents or limits users from accessing their system, known as a ransom. This is achieved by locking the system screen or by locking the user's file until that ransom is paid. Ransomware can be downloaded onto system when user visits malicious or compromised websites. It can also be delivered as attachment from spammed emails or downloaded from malicious programs users can get online. So what does an attack look like? The victim acquires ransomware from an email, an exploit, or a worm. The ransomware contacts the attacker's CNC server and downloads a public key. After that, the data is encrypted and a ransomware note provides the ransom fee instructions. You then, in theory, pay them Bitcoin, which we strongly don't recommend. We strongly recommend taking a better cybersecurity stance, getting proper cybersecurity insurance and protecting yourself that way, because we're just going to make this economy stronger if we continue to pay them and have to pay more in the long run. And then after the ransom is paid, the attacker sends a private key to decrypt the data. So that's kind of a standard attack and what happens, right? That's what we've known previous years, right? Is people would pay off the ransomware, do that. But now there's a more hardened approach on cybersecurity and keeping employees trained, passwords managed, updates comprehended, and backup secure, because those are the best ways that you're going to get back from a ransomware attack. So you're vulnerable to ransomware if you use legacy software, your browsers and OSs are unpatched, you operate with outdated equipment, you don't have a legitimate backup plan, or you lack a comprehensive cybersecurity strategy. Those are the kind of the 5 main pillars that we see in businesses that are lacking to get them back from a ransomware attack. It's almost when is it going to happen nowadays, not if it's going to happen, and that's what we have to help you prepare for. So preventing a ransomware attack: do not open suspicious email attachments and never click on unsafe links. Avoid disclosing any of your personal information. Keep your operating systems up to date. Only use known downloaded sources. Use an antivirus, anti-malware software on your connected devices, which has also been upgraded in the last year to using EDR solutions as well, so endpoint detection response solutions. Incorporate a firewall and VPN services on your network. These are all great ways to help prevent ransomware at a base level. And then the final thing, and the most important, which we see a lot of people either forget about, turn on, or don't manage, is having a dedicated backup and restore system in place for your business, your personal, or anything that you don't want your information erased from this face of the earth with. So how do you stay safe? Be careful of what you share online. Keep your passwords safe and secure. Keep your systems and devices up to date. Keep your devices backed up. Get security protection for your devices and use multi-factor authentication when available. So the big thing is to protect your socials. A lot of our websites are now linked because we sign in with Facebook, we sign in with Google, or we make our lives easier doing that way. The real problem with that is when you get into one, you're really doing the domino effect and going to each other one. So what you want to do is change your passwords regularly. Don't share your passwords with other people and make these passwords hard to guess. So people easily share their private information online. They're building robust libraries that can easily become a one-stop goldmine for fraudsters. On Facebook alone, the average person shares 13 pieces of personal information, ranging from an innocent name email combo all the way to mother's maiden name and your home address. For example, someone could be trying to access your email account by clicking forgot the password link. The email service follows its security rules and asks identifying questions like, which high school did you go to? What is your pet's name? Unfortunately, the most common identifying checks are answers that you've probably put available online on your Facebook, Instagram, or other social media accounts. Once your email address password is compromised, hackers can use that to break into other services and go through each one, clicking reset password on site after site, account after account, until they have full access to your emails. So there's nothing stopping them from emptying your bank account, or even worse, and that's getting your identity or that personal compliant information, as we like to call it. So how do you secure your social networks? Begin by previewing your profile as others would see it. Review what should and should not be visible to strangers. Consider only sharing partial details like birthday and month, but not the year. Only ever friend people you know and trust. Yes, I know it's nice to make new friends, but unfortunately, they don't usually come digitally nowadays. Be wary of duplicate or odd friend behavior. Hackers will often clone or hack a friend's profile and initiate an urgent and uncharacteristic request for money. Update your past privacy settings too, so people can't see your old posts. Set default future sharing to friends only. And with this comes password exhaustion. So what they're doing once they get into those accounts is exhausting all the passwords. So as you'll see, the most popular passwords are very easy ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, password, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, QWERTY, and many other things. What you want to do is make sure your password's long, you have two-factor authentication set up, and you use both symbols and numbers. So rethink how you manage your passwords. 21% of people use passwords that are of 10 years of age. 47% of people use passwords that are at least 5 years old. 73% of online accounts are compromised through a duplicate password. And I know most people are sitting here going, ooh, I have that set up right now. So most people use the same password everywhere: home, work, Gmail, Facebook, even for banking. 150 million Equifax emails and passwords were leaked. 117 million LinkedIn account details were leaked. You're using the same password? Well, cue the domino effect. One site breach follows another and another and another until the hackers have nothing more to gain. The only way to break the train of reaction is to use a different password for each site. Now that becomes complicated. So how do I do that? How do I make a password, or what we like to call a password system, for each site? Well, let us show you how to do that. So have a system or template for creating your own unique password that you'll be able to remember, but it's not obvious to other people or hackers. For example, here we got character, word, something about the website, number, character. So this becomes exclamation mark, kitty with a 1, FB75 exclamation mark. Now that might seem a little bit complicated just looking at it, but the above is simply just based around the words kitty and Facebook. Change the FB to something else for other sites, and then you're stopping that domino effect that the hackers are doing by taking your password and using a bot to implement it in many different sites and getting into all of your accounts that way. This system will help you get through. And if you don't want to remember through a system, a password manager is a great alternative as well, such as LastPass, NordPass. There's many out there right now. So how do you know if your accounts have been breached? You can check to see if there's any questions of your accounts have been compromised by entering your email into sites like haveibeenpwned.com. If it alerts you to a breach, you need to change your password immediately, all of them. Use the example system to create a new set. If you're struggling to remember your passwords, consider using a secure password manager. So how do you prevent these from happening? Multi-factor authentication is the biggest thing that you can do to prevent these from happening. And it's becoming a requirement at the insurance companies and for cybersecurity compliance. So by setting up multi-factor authentication on your available accounts, they have it pretty much on every service nowadays, and it will stop a lot of these common password hackings. But how does MFA combat these accounts, you might ask? Well, multi-factor authentication works to thwart cyber criminals by requiring additional information or credentials from the user. A phishing attack may garner a user's credentials, but it won't provide the hacker with the fingerprint for the instance or the answer to a personal security question that they might need, making it harder for them to get in, making you less of a target for what they want to get. So here's an example of it. The attackers taking a bunch of stolen credentials. They have a bunch of different servers running. They've got bots on these servers, and then they're putting in the passwords, but they're hitting a whole bunch of MFA. This is going to deny the hacker access to these services. And what that stops them is getting into your account at that base level. A security alert's then triggered that your account's been accessed, and you can go in and change your passwords and hopefully the resulting passwords of any other ones you use on other sites as well, so that all your accounts are secured. Yes, it's a massive pain, but it's much better than having everything taken from your bank account, which we see more and more each day. So how do you prevent these from happening? Updates. The easiest thing you can do to stay safe is updating your system, hitting that annoying little notification that says at 12 a.m., can I update after I charge the phone? Hitting that install, hitting that update, pressing that button after you're done. A lot of them now are, you can set timers, you can set it for when you're done work, set it for when you're sleeping, all of that kind of stuff. This is the easiest case that you can do. In too many of the cybersecurity threats that we've seen at a national, federal, and other levels, have been because they haven't updated their system, and there's proven documentation on that. So their systems were updated, they were using legacy stuff, or there wasn't the proper cyber budget there to take care of this. So updates are the biggest things that you can do. Cyber threats are real. They expose sensitive information and put financial and personal information at risk. No one wants to be that company that has to go around to their clients to say, it was us, your information's been exposed, or have to talk to their clients about this, right? Which a lot of people don't realize is a part of the reporting process when you report a cyber attack with the Canadian government. It is always sad when these threats are successful simply because people or even companies fail to update the software and increase their cyber protection in stopping those. So why stay updated? There are several well-documented cases where companies have exposed the personal information of their clients to criminals simply by failing to press the update button on a piece of software. The bottom line that when it comes to IT security, a lot of the risk is not taken seriously with it. If you have personal information about yourself, your financial information, and that of your relatives and friends on the software you currently use, then downloading updates is a must. If it's your computer, phones, or other electronic devices that connect to the internet, these all need to stay up to date, especially with the introduction of what's called Internet of Things. So Google speakers, Alexa speakers, smart lights, smart lamps, all of those neat stuff that allow us to say stop or turn off at the sound of a button. You got to go into that app and keep those updated as well, because that will keep your whole network secured for you to the best of its ability, right? Another thing is backups. Another solution users can perform and do is backing up their own devices. This helps in case the attack gets through and you need to have your files restored. The rule is keep at least 3 copies of your data and store 2 backup copies on different storage media, with one of them located offsite in the cloud. We have a saying here about backups. There are 2 types of people: those who have backed up their data and those who have yet to lose their data yet. Why stay backed up? If all else fails, backups are a sure way to make sure your data is safe and no loss will come to you or your organization. If you make mistakes on files, it's always great to have a backup. Backing up is the #1 way to fight against ransomware and not paying the ransomware fee or having to deal directly with the attacker. It is the fastest way to get a device up and running again. Protection. The last solution a user can do is make sure their devices are protected. None of the major OS manufacturers from Microsoft, Google to Apple claim to be security experts. This is where companies like Bitdefender, Symantec, Malwarebytes, SentinelOne, and many other organizations come and offer third-party protection. This security is crucial, especially for the platforms that utilize AI and EDR solutions. So why protection with AI EDR? The reason why AI is so critical to security software is the user, unfortunately, is the weakest point on the computer. We can all be educated, but we need to be right 100% of the time. The bad actors only need to be right once. AI learns the user patterns and helps prevent an attack on higher levels, such as social engineering, phishing, spear phishing, whaling, or many more advanced attacks we've seen lately. We recommend Bitdefender, Gravity Zone, or Cylance. And sorry, that actually just changed yesterday with a report that came out. We're now doing SentinelOne and Palo Alto's network security and Microsoft Defender. So if you want to know more, you can check out our website at www.joapps.ca/new blogs. We have the latest blog posts and up-to-date security information and tech information. You can keep up with us on our socials at JoApps Support for current threats happening and when we release new blog posts and ebooks that we have as well. Now, this is the part that I like to have kind of a bit more fun with, is the Q&A portion, because there's always tons of questions on technology. So I know we have some pre-formatted questions. I see Amy's popped back in here to answer them. Do you want us to take the slide down or leave that up and we can talk, or how does that look?
I think, yeah, we can take the slide deck down and then we can just have a chat. If there's anything that you want to refer back to, we can always throw it back up there again. But Joseph, thank you so much. That was so informative. I think one thing that's so interesting to me is something that we all know, the connection between our social lives and how easily accessible our personal identifying information is, but how important of a link it is also to our business lives, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you for making those links. And I also loved your recommendation for creating our own password systems. It's something I've actually never heard of. And we know that there's lots of password managers out there, but it's neat to have a different method as well. So very cool. Just before we have lots of questions actually from our attendees. So thank you to everyone who submitted those ahead of time and as we speak. Before I dive into those, I just want to make a note that we will be sharing this recording of the presentation with everyone following the event. So you can refer back to Joseph's presentation very easily. And then you can also, of course, connect with Joseph and his team later on with any direct questions that you may have. So with that, Joseph, Mark, one of our attendees, wants to know what the most common cybersecurity threat that you and the JoApps team come up with your customers.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark, for asking, because it's a very important question. And what we've seen kind of the beginning of this year and all of last year has been phishing. Phishing is a huge one that's getting into organizations. And I wouldn't even say it's phishing anymore. We like to refer to it as a spear phishing and whaling, because what they're actually doing is they're getting into the email credentials and they're living inside of there. So they're not going to just go in and deploy right away. They're going to take 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 6 months inside of that system. They're going to let the logs go away. They're going to let any record of themselves being in there kind of fade away. And what they're going to do is just really look into that emails, make connections of who's the CEO, who's the account payables, the financials. Is there an approval process in the business? Is finances being approved to go out? Can you just ask for money? All of that kind of more high level stuff. So we're really seeing this advancement of them being able to just send these general emails and get credentials to these very kind of high level sophisticated attacks that take a project management team, a resource team, resource allocation, tracking, logging, all of that kind of stuff. And that's what's getting very, very scary for us. So the big thing is to help them thought that stuff is cybersecurity training for employees. And that's something that this cybersecurity insurance is actually starting to ask. And it's a big question of them, is making sure that organizations have their employees trained. Because as I said, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but the user is the weakest part, because we can just be quick in a day or have to send that off quickly, you know what I mean? Or trying to please that client for our boss or one of those kind of things, right? So we send that money quickly, and then next thing we go, oh, wait, that wasn't the email, or we second check again, right? So I think this kind of environment of things getting done fast and quick and things like that, sometimes we just need to slow back, especially on the financial side, and really evaluate what's happening, looking at that emails, or using advanced phishing programs that they have now. There's Iron Scales out there, there's CrowdStrike, and there's many other great ones that have AI built into them as well, and that they're able to detect this isn't the proper tone that your CEO usually uses, or it's come from the CEO's registered devices, but this is outside in another foreign country, you know what I mean? So I would it puts a recommendation on top to either call that person or work with them or things like that. So unfortunately, the best way is kind of those AI systems that we see now, because they take the thinking out of it for the users. But it's also great that a user is trained in phishing, even for their own emails at home or personal level as well, right? Because they're always looking for Netflix passwords or Spotify or all of that fun stuff. So phishing's our big one, but it's grown into an advanced form of it now, which makes our job a lot less sleepless nights, that's for sure.
Absolutely. That's actually something that I wanted to touch on with you a little bit further. And I think you just answered it, but with us as users being the weakest links, and we, us as the chamber have businesses that are members that are, there's one person, but then there's also really large businesses that, are managing their staff of hundreds of people and making sure that that information is getting disseminated across all of the staff and everyone remaining vigilant. So it sounds like for those groups of staff, it's implementing some AI programs and or software, and then also supplementing that with training. Is that kind of the best approaches that businesses can take for reducing that weakest link factor of ourselves?
It's really going to help, and it's really going to put you kind of above and beyond what other people are doing and keep the hackers away from you, right? What you want to do is make it as hard as possible for the hackers to get in so that they shift to those easier targets, right? But the biggest thing for small businesses, like you said, there's 1 to 100 users, right? The biggest thing for those one user businesses, get that cybersecurity training, get an understanding of what phishing emails look like, and just kind of do some research on it, right? For those bigger organizations, and as you grow, and even the one user organizations, if you don't want to think about it, AI is the best thing that you can do to stop that, because you don't have to think about it. It's watching the logs, it's taking care of that. And the added thing is having what's called a SOC, a Security Operations Center, watching it behind, and then you just take all of the headache off your plate because you have a team of professionals that are watching this. So that's what we're seeing in the larger organizations, and even the smaller ones having to start to do.
Yeah, that's brilliant, actually, because I think for me, just as an employee, that's one of the most challenging concepts. Or as a business owner, you have 100 things on your mind. Making sure that you're not just reading every email quickly and responding, you're actually doing with vigilance is really challenging. So now that there's other options, that's really very helpful, I imagine. Joseph, we have a question from one of our audience members that if you don't shut down your computer and it's open when it's not in use, is it true that hackers can get into your system?
That is most definitely true, because as long as you're connected online, hackers can get on your system. Now, unfortunately, the most foolproof way to use a computer is unplug it. You know what I mean? That's going to be totally, you won't get hacked. That's impossible to do though, right? We need this technology. We need to be good at it, and we need to make sure it's going. So yep, shutting down the computer at night is one great way to do it. Now, for organizations like that we manage and stuff like that, it's impossible for them to shut down their computers, because we need to perform update services, backups, and those things that go in the night, because if we do it during the day, it will shut their computer right down because the speeds of the processes that need to be done, right? So yes, the safest way is if you don't have antivirus or any security management software on your computer, definitely shut it down at the end of the day. There's no way that they can get on when it's shut down. But the bigger thing is, right, is making sure that you have the proper security to leave it on, because you are going to want those updates and things to go after hours, or setting up your own schedule, right? You do the updates Sunday, you start them early in the day, you close off the computer at night, that kind of stuff. So it's ever best for your lifestyle as well. And sorry, I shouldn't say that hackers can't get into turned off computers, because there is something called wake from LAN on computers. So I don't want to I know there's some cyber people in here, so I don't want to get in trouble later. So computers can actually be turned on from when they're on sleep mode, but a hacker must have access to another device on that network to be able to do so. So from a sleep or shutdown state. So I want to just correct myself there. You can actually get on, but they need to have control of another device on that internal network. So under your Wi-Fi or your LAN network.
Very helpful. Thank you. Looking for some tips and or recommendations, I suppose, in a couple of different systems. So Ola is wondering if you have any recommendations for anti-ransom or anti-malware software specifically that folks can start to utilize.
Yeah, so we definitely, Sentinel-1 is one of the best anti-ransom, anti-malware programs out there. So there's been a shift in anti-malware, antivirus, all of that stuff. You used to have an antivirus, and then it ran through kind of a list of definitions, said this is a bad one, I see it on the system, kick it off. That was like our early computers to like 2010, 2012, 2013 kind of thing. Then 2013, AI gets introduced. They start to use AI. It's now learning how users interact on the computer and doing all of that kind of stuff, right? Then we get into kind of late 2015, 2016, and don't hold me on the years here. It's kind of can be give or take there. Then you get into what's called an emergency detection response system, so EDR systems with a lot of the big providers. And what those are is it's actually looking at your files and changes and stuff in the computer and really doing behavioral analytics so that it can stop, like if 5 files rapidly start changing names, it locks down the computer and stops it right there, sends a request to the security company, and then they would contact your IT company or you to let you know something's going on. So that's the more advanced level that we're really seeing. So that's called Sentinel-1. That's a big provider for that. Palo Alto Networks is another one. Microsoft Defender has an upgraded version, not just the one they throw on your computer. There's a level that you can get with them through the Microsoft licensing portal. So those would be the big 3 that we recommend now. Those by themselves are great. They sell them all by themselves, or they sell them with what's called a security operations center, so a SOC, and that has someone kind of going through the definitions for your organization and making sure that they're taken care of. So the stuff that we kind of do on the more advanced level here, because we work on a basic, advanced, and premium level based on your business's cybersecurity needs, because there's always going to be a usability, security risk, right? So yes, that software is super easy to use, but it's also super easy to get in, right? The software is more secure, it's a little harder to use, right? So it's judging that. And then also a cost and usability factor as well for businesses, right? Because the cost of cybersecurity can just go up like that. We understand that, but there can be much higher costs if things aren't done as well, right? So it's looking into the big picture as opposed to, just that one thing, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It reminds me, I don't remember off the top of my head what you're saying is. It's you're either backed up or you haven't yet been hacked or whatever that is, but it rings true, right?
Yeah, no one thinks that it's an issue till it happens to them, right? So, and I know there's other people in here who are IT providers as well. So our hardest job is to get people to say, hey, this is going to happen before. It's never happened to you, but it's going to, it's sometime going to happen. So we need to be ready for it, right? But there's been a big push in insurance companies with the cyber stuff. So I think a lot of businesses are seeing this more important than ever, especially with this year, with insurance renewals coming. And now they have cybersecurity forms that are bigger than their original renewal, and they never had to fill them out before, right? So,
yeah. Along the notes of recommendations, you mentioned a couple quickly in your presentation on password managers. And do you have any recommendations specifically, or not recommendations, anti-recommendations, anything on either end of that for password managers, management systems that people can use or maybe should stay away from?
Yeah, so and we're obviously, LastPass has been one of the ones in the news that had a attack and stuff like that. So it's how they deal with them, right? And that's the biggest thing. I think what we have to realize is, unfortunately, a lot of companies, like, cybersecurity issues are going to happen, right? So it's how do these companies deal with it and respond, right? So LastPass, they're a great company. They had a great response to that. They did work with their clients. It's an unfortunate situation. I totally understand that. I'm not justifying them. I also don't resell LastPass, so it has nothing to do with me, but it's a great consumer-based password manager. So is NordPass. Those are 2 great ones. I would say NordPass over LastPass. We have an internal one. We use something called MyGlue, which we resell and give out to our clients as needed kind of thing. That's another great one that we've seen on the market. And those would kind of be my recommended one. Google has one that's built into Google. Strongly wouldn't recommend using it because, like, the problem with Google products is they're absolutely fantastic, but you're not paying a fee for them. So if you're not paying a fee for the product, you usually are the product. If you don't realize that now or not, it's something that I think we all will with SaaS applications and software as a service coming to the forefront of everything now. So you really have to be careful putting them in there, right? So if it's easier passwords you don't care about, have fun, right? But if it's your banking, this, that, or the other, stay clear with a 10-foot pole.
Very helpful. Thank you. On that note, is it safe to keep passwords and those sorts of things in the cloud?
I think that's a hard discussion. I think that's what we kind of, as IT security, kind of bounce back and forth on, right? And there was another great question about kind of platform as a service and past services and stuff like that. I think what we really need is kind of the Western side of the world, because Europe and stuff does this really good with their GDPR and their cybersecurity like legislation that you have to abide by, and they have a lot of ISO requirements for businesses for cybersecurity. We don't do the best part of that. It's really coming up. Canada's really done a big initiative over the last 2 years for it. America's introduced NIST standard framework. So I really think the big thing is making sure that these businesses that we're giving our money and investing in are following these standards that they need to, and maybe just doing a little bit of research. Just because, it's the top one that pops up on Instagram might not be the best one, right? So that's the biggest thing, is just holding these companies accountable. And I think it's kind of a whole organization thing over here in the West. And that's making sure that we tell these companies, hey, you need to do better. You need to do this. You need to take care of our information, because that's what they have to do in Europe and these other countries that we're seeing that big twist on, right? So I think that one's kind of the hard part here on the Western side of the world, is our rules are a lot looser and a lot less secure. So we need to bring that up to standard. But it's a great alternative to, having it just written down, having the same password and stuff like that. So it's that double-edged sword situation.
Yeah, that makes good sense. Joe, if we can dive into that question that you were referring to a little bit, and then we'll bring it back a bit higher level. But Andy wants to know the best cybersecurity strategy for having an e-commerce site, if the past infrastructure and security controls are managed by a third-party vendor. And you kind of touched on this a little bit, but just in effort to make sure. And then how do we maintain that situational awareness when that is the case?
Yeah, and I think, Andy, you touch on a great question, and one many of us IT providers, service solutions have been struggling with, because obviously a lot of the stuff IT does isn't in-house, right? Like, us companies can't afford $10 million data centers, servers all over the walls, stuff like that. So we rely on Amazon, we rely on Google, we rely on Lenovo, we rely on all these other big companies to do this for us, right? So I really think it comes back to tighter regulations, right? Because there is no great way now to do that. Now, at the end of the day, I don't do e-commerce, so I'm going to make that totally transparent. We don't do cybersecurity for e-commerce or those kind of businesses. What we focus on is the internal IT for mainly lawyers, accountants, manufacturers, transportation, not-for-profit industries. So that's where I would be more educated on. But I think it really just comes back to the thing that I said. And because you're relying on someone else, you need to make sure that they have those compliance, they're going above and beyond, and they're aligning with not stuff that we are required to do right now, but we're seeing other countries, et cetera, requiring to do and aligning with those standards. Because I think that's the best way that we're the most powerful right now, is realizing what other people are doing instead of stepping back and going, oh, I'm not going to do it because it's not required. Getting ahead and doing that required stuff. So it's asking the past companies what their security policy is, what their cybersecurity is, their backup disaster recovery plans, looking into your contracts with them are the ways that you can stay the safest, right? If they have a contract that says we take no liability for anything, well, probably don't want to throw your SaaS stuff in there, right? Or your past stuff, your SaaS service or your e-commerce inside of systems like that, right? So I think that's the hardest thing, is it comes back to rules and regulations, which we are seeing a huge shift on with CMCC 2.0 and other things like that, right? So.
Fantastic. Flipping it totally on its head here. If I'm someone who's very new to this whole world and this whole concept, maybe I'm a small business owner, but I'm kind of taking my first steps. You outlined a number of different, very accessible methods for folks and businesses to protect themselves. What would you say is kind of that first step, and maybe that easiest step for folks or business owners to take?
I think the first and easiest step is the backup stuff, to be honest with you, because it starts from the ground, right? If you have that backup there and you're good to go, that's one of the easiest ways that we've been able to save businesses and organizations, is restoring from there. So you get the Mac computer, you get the Windows computer, you get the iPhone, whatever that might be, right? You grab some kind of storage. So whether you want to back your iPhone up to the computer and do it that way, or use iCloud's built-in method, or Samsung's backup system that they have, Google's backup system that they have, one of those methods, right? You plug an external hard drive to your laptop, you buy a cloud backup service, just starting with that kind of, and just getting into a habit of putting that on nightly, doing the backups, making sure that that's taken care of. and just kind of quickly checking that, right? Because that will get you back up the fastest way possible. And also on Windows computers, OneDrive is a great alternative, not alternative, sorry, always back up with OneDrive, but OneDrive is a great method that you can do to put your files in as well, which has what's called version history. So if ransomware does get the files, we can restore a previous version. So we've seen great success in that too, but it's not an ultimate backup solution. Please back it up as well.
That's perfect. So a lot of those automated backup options for folks, that was one thing that I was thinking of is, making sure that we remember to do these backups. So utilizing any of those softwares that you just mentioned are great ways to have that be an automated step and another thing that we can take ourselves out of the process, correct?
Exactly. And as you said, they'll do it for you. You just got to go in and turn it on most of the time. You know what I mean? You just got to go in, press the on button, pick what you want backed up, and then go from there. That's going to be the big thing, because by default, it might, you put another USB stick in there, another drive, it might not pick up that. You need to make sure that you have everything you want in there and just do a check of it. And then it's scheduled for times, because you don't want to do it at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. as you start your workday. Your computer will go like this, right? So hang down.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, this one also coming in from an attendee ahead of time. How are blocked senders still able to access your email address and continue to send spam or malicious malware?
So usually what they're doing is using like a variation of that blocked email. So it might have like an A in it, and they've changed it to a B when it's like 32 characters. So even though you blocked, it looks really, really similar. They've just changed out one letter. That is one of the big ways. If they're still getting in, then there's probably some whitelisting or domain-based issues that went on. And it would be more than a discussion we could have here today. So if you've done that and it's the same email and still keeps going, it's definitely worth having your DNS records checked, your DKIM records, and these kind of more advanced cybersecurity records to help stop that kind of stuff, because then it gets into a bit bigger of an issue. But the main thing is usually they're just using different emails, because I get asked that question all the time, like, hey, I blocked this person. It's like, yeah, but it's not the same email they're sending on. So it just bypasses that, right? So another thing that you can do to get very technical on it, if you find that the sender is coming from the same IP address, you can ask your IP to block that IP address, right? And stop it that way. But that's in the back end of your email system.
That's when we call our
yeah, that's when you call, that's when you get a Joe, right? So
yeah, I love that. I need that. Joe, we've got a few more minutes. We have a ton of questions here today. So for anyone who's submitted questions that we might not get to, we'll be sure to make those connections afterwards. But we have some time for a few more. And if there's any more, please feel free to send. But looking at the two-factor authentications, is it worth, in your opinion, investing in hardware for two-factor authentications, something like YubiKey that we see?
Yeah, we're starting to see those a lot more, and they seem to be the most secure ways of doing it, because we're starting to see a lot of like SMS intercepting of multi-factor passwords and stuff like that. So that is the pain, is those keys are a very, very good way to do it. Now, I know it's, again, an extra device, this, that, and the other, but it's a heck of a lot better than coming in your QuickBooks or bank account or this or that has been drained. I will tell you that. We've seen some unfortunate situations we've been called into, and there's been times where we've just had to tell the business, like, you either start again or you're done, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Because that's the realistic case of what this happens with.
Really, really unfortunate, actually. Do you recommend, so again, looking at businesses, do you recommend a cyber policy for all organizations? What does that entail? And then are there, I'm thinking maybe the answer is yes, but are there specific industries that are more vulnerable and that really need to be prioritizing this more than others? That was like 4 questions in one. I'm very sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I'll break it down. So are there certain industries that should be prioritizing it? Yes, most definitely. And it's the industries that have PCI information, so personal compliance information. So I could literally take your SIN number, some personal identifiable information like your license or something like that, become you. So I could be you, I could open bank accounts, lease cars, all of that fun stuff, right? So those are big targets. Usually those are lawyers, accountants, healthcares, not-for-profit industries. Another big thing we see is like supply chain feeder businesses. So let's use Ford as an example. So Ford makes the cars, right? But people make the seats, the seat belts, and all of this kind of stuff. So we see a lot of people going to those small businesses trying to get in that way, right? Or a big one would be with the wine companies. A lot of people supply them the grapes and stuff like that. But then you have that big company behind it, the big conglomerate that's buying it, doing those kind of processing things. They're kind of a way in for those companies. So that's the big thing that we're seeing is any companies that are in supply chain or not manufacturing, legal, accounting, or not-for-profit organizations as well. Because usually those not-for-profits are hooked in with high ups at businesses like CEOs, C or D levels. So it's another good lateral move for the hackers as well. Should all businesses have cybersecurity policies? I think that's my answer would be yes, because I think all businesses should have policies. That's the best way a business runs personally. Now, I've been a one-person business, so I know it's next to impossible to make your own policies because they lie in your head and it's like you're pulling them from there, right? So that's the hard part, but it doesn't hurt to have what's called a backup disaster recovery plan. So we had an office July last year that caught on fire. We had water damage, everything, destroyed everything in our office completely, right? I got the message at 11 p.m. at night. Me and my director of technology got over here. One of our technicians came. Within 3 hours, we were able to move everything into remote locations, reprogram all the phones, move all our systems, and our employees were able to work remotely the next day before the morning came, right? Because we had that backup disaster recovery plan in place. If we'd never had that, we would have been frantically, what do we do? The office is on fire, all those kind of streamlined things. Not only was it our office, 5 other client offices did. 3 of them had backup disaster recovery plans, 2 of them didn't. I'm sure you can guess who got up faster and who didn't, right? So that's the big thing, is it does come really helpful. And these are situations we don't think would happen. I never thought my office on the big service road by a highway would ever burn down. You know what I mean? Like, you feel kind of protected there. There's so much stuff. Someone's going to see a fire quickly, right? But it happens. So it's having those in place. So those cyber policies and those kind of backup disaster recoveries are huge too, as well as cybersecurity insurance, right? Because it can get very expensive from not only your computer being hacked and having to replace that, the cost to get a technician in, but what a lot of people don't think of is the PR expenses that go with it, right? You have to run quite significant PR campaign to get your reputation or save that reputation as well, especially if you're a lawyer, accountant, or any of those industries, not for profit. Like, who wants to be giving away money to a charity, that's getting hacked all the time or has your information, or who wants to be dealing with a lawyer who, has given out your last X amount of records or your corporate financial records, or, their divorce lawyers, corporate, family, all that kind of, you don't want that information out there, right? So those are the big players that should definitely be considering that if they haven't already, because they hold our most true and dear information, right?
Yes, they do. And it sounds to me, at the end of the day, it's really just coming down to preparedness and having a plan. And what that plan looks like, obviously, is going to change from business to business and the size and all of that. But putting those pieces in step and in place so that you're ready and you're prepared. Joe, I've got 2 last quick questions, and then I think we'll be able to wrap it up. This was phenomenal, and my brain feels like it's needs some time to process all of this. But last 2 questions for you. One, some online services are starting to roll out passwordless logins. Do you see this becoming a mainstream option? And is it something that businesses should start looking for?
Yeah, so single sign-on authentication, or SSO services, are something we hugely believe in now the more than ever, because the hardest thing is, I've said this password system today, I said the password manager and all of that, but getting people to actually use it is so hard. So if we, as personal users or IT departments, IT providers, virtual CIOs, whatever that might look like, can set up your email account, and then that's connected to all the services you need as a business. Not only is it better for your employee when they come in for an overall experience, but it's better for your business because now there's no passwords, there's no password resets, there's no your employees locked out, there's no passwords transferring around or being able to get hacked. Does there come security concerns with the authentication methods and stuff like that? We haven't seen major ones at this time. I'm sure stuff will come down the rope. That's why we have a job. That's why I keep very busy. That's why I'm up all the time learning about this stuff, right? But that is the biggest way that we're seeing organizations stay safe, is implementing SSO through Azure AD, Google Cloud, all of these kind of systems that do it. There's tons of different providers now. So yeah, it's something that we've started rolling out with our clients, and we've had lots of great success with it, and they like the ease of use as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can see that being important from that HR perspective side of things. And it's interesting how it all comes to play together. Okay, last one, we were talking about safety and, you know, keeping our businesses and organizations safe. Is there any safe way for a business or organization to test their vulnerabilities before an actual cyber attack happens?
Yep, there's quite a few different ways. So one of the big new words on the market I like to say is it's not new, it's been old, but it's vulnerability testing and penetration testing. So we can go in and test with these common threats, these things that are going out in the industry, and be able to patch these for the business. So that's the best way, is kind of testing against your environment and making sure that they're all safe and protected. So those are two big things we see. And also Microsoft's introduced what's called a security score. So you can go in and see if its environment's protected too, which is a super cool feature that they have.
Okay, awesome. So yes, and yes, we should look at that. Well, Joseph, I don't know if you have any final remarks or want to share anything with our folks today. Feel free to do so now.
Yeah, I just want to let everyone know, thank you for joining us today. If your question didn't get answered, send it to info@joapps.ca. I'll be happy to answer it. Give me about 24 to 48 hours, because I'm always kind of answering different cyber questions that come in. So it's very, very important to me. I just want to make sure I do it in a timely manner and get you the proper answer, everything like that. We're also running a free cybersecurity assessment. If anyone wants, send us your info to info@joapps.ca. What that does is allows us to test your Microsoft 365 tenant if you have admin credentials, your website, as well as look on the dark web for any passwords that may be exposed. That's free of charge. We'll send you the reports. Send it to info@joapps.ca if you want to get in on this. And this is something that we offer after our cybersecurity lunch and learns, just to give you a peace of mind of what you have out there. So like I said, completely free. Reach out to us. We would love to run it through for you. And we don't need your admin credentials for Microsoft 365. We send you a link, you put them in. So there's no stuff that we're taking other than stuff that's widely available out there.
Joseph, thank you so very much for everything today. Our team at the GNCC is immensely grateful, especially to have folks like you in our network and help all of our members. So thank you. And thank you as well to our sponsor and partner, YMCA of Niagara. We definitely could not do this without your support. Please don't hesitate to reach out to Joseph, Jillian, or any of our GNCC staff for further information on today's session. As Joseph mentioned, we will be sending out all of the information following the webinar, and hope to see you all at two of our events next week, the Next Niagara event on February 6th and Business After 5 on February 7th. Wishing you all a great week and have a great and cyber safe afternoon.
Thanks, everybody.